Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Beyond the Gate, our Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood podcast. I'm Megan,
And I'm Meg.
and today we're talking about episode 25, Doorway of Darkness. And we are so excited to be talking about it.
Yes, I feel like almost every episode from now on, we're going to be so excited.
Yeah.
But these ones especially. So, summary of the episode. The homunculi are winning. Ed and Ling face a horrific enemy within the hellish expanse of Gluttony's gut. In Central, Mustang can only watch as his loyal band of soldiers is divided by Bradley.
Yes, and this covers manga chapters 51, A Portal in the Darkness, and 52, Lord of the Demon's Lair. And I'm going to say this for this episode, and I know the next episode because I've read ahead, but please read the manga. Pay attention to the manga. The art is stellar. It gets really good.
Yeah. It is very close, similar to the anime.
Yeah, for sure.
Follows the anime follows the manga very closely.
Yes, the manga came first. Never forget that.
Yes, I will not. All right, well, let's just jump right in because this is a great episode. In the last episode, we saw Ed he's alive. He's in a strange place, and he's searching for other people. He calls out for I think for Al, and also the idiot prince, and the idiot prince is there. It's like, who are you calling an idiot prince?
But it's really sweet because although there's that witty banter and they seem to be at each other's throats, as soon as Ed spots Ling, his first question is, "Are you all right?"
Yeah, he's so sweet.
Yeah,
he cares about everyone. Yes.
Then his common sense comes into play, which Meg appreciated. She thought that was very wise and cool of him to keep his head. But
he's I did appreciate this. He immediately after their little exchange, he's like, "How do I know that you're actually Ling?" And then Ling's like, "Well, I can recite the whole hotel menu." And it's like, "Nope, I believe you. You're Ling." And then Ling's like, "Well, how do I know that you're actually Ed?" And he calls him Little Runt, and Ed is very upset.
It's like, okay, it's you.
Confirming that it is Ed. It's kind of funny in the manga. He doesn't even get out Little Runt. Like, he doesn't even have time to say it.
Yeah. And in the manga, Ling he's carrying a torch in the anime too, but in the manga, they made a point of like, they never, address this in the anime, but the torch is made from a human bone. So in the manga, Ed takes it from him. He's like, "Give me the light." He takes it from him, and he's like, "Wait a second, is this a bone? Is this a human bone?" He's freaked out. And Ling is just like, "Yeah." And it's really funny because Ed is like holding it with 2 fingers on each hand and carefully carrying it around like, "Oh, nasty, gross."
Okay, you know what's totally hilarious? I totally misread that part of the manga. For some reason, I thought Ling had reconstructed the skeleton. I don't know. Like, I read it that way. Like, I thought he had just like rebuilt the skeleton. I was like, why did he do that? Only.
That's awesome.
That makes way more sense. Anyway, they think that they are in Gluttony's stomach. They see like fire. As we mentioned, Ling has a torch, and they think like, oh, it must be from Mustang's attack when Gluttony swallowed the fire. And then they also they find they see the lieutenant's car and part of the house that they were in. And so I think it's a pretty safe assumption that that's where they are. And then they see Al's hand laying there, and Ed immediately goes to it, and it's pretty funny. He tries to contact Al through brother telepathy, which doesn't work, but
right. But he says like, brother telepathy conveniently awaken in me. You have to pay
Yeah.
attention in the background. I thought it was great he said that because yeah, it's a funny line, but it also is kind of true in shonen. In shonen anime, it's common for characters to like in their moment of darkest, deepest need, they just suddenly develop some strange new power. Like, oh, well, that would have been nice, but
Hmm.
this isn't a normal shonen, so sorry, Ed.
Yeah, yeah. Well, two things. One, I mentioned last night is although I do always find it kind of annoying when they're like, "Oh, look at this new power," but I also think that in in a moment of need, if that power is already within you,
Right, so you can draw
it
it
can,
out.
yeah, yeah. But also, two, they actually, like, if the author would have wanted to do it, she could have made that happen because we already know that Ed and Al's souls are like intertwined, entangled
Yeah,
together.
it could be
So,
believable. It really
yeah,
could.
yeah, it totally could. But doesn't happen, which
Oh well,
I kind
they
of,
just have to find
I'm,
another way.
yeah, yeah, I'm not upset about it, but,
No.
um,
I like there are a couple extra things that happen in the manga, not super important or like story changing things, but very very cool that they're added. One of those things is that Ed uses the gun that Riza gave him. He shoots to either side of himself and then up in the air to try and gauge the distance of how big Gluttony's stomach is, but there's no echo that reverberates from the gun, so they know that it has to be absolutely massive. And another really sweet thing that Ed says while he and Ling are walking, they're just kind of like making small talk, and then Ed's like, "Oh, I need to get back as soon as possible because I need to fix the damage I caused to the village during my fight with Scar."
yeah, I thought that was super sweet.
He's responsible
Um,
to a fault
yeah, yeah.
most of the time.
They make a well, and like drop one of the torches down there and never hits a bottom. There is no
Yeah,
bottom. Then after they're like, okay, there's no bottom, they start running to try and find an exit. And while they're doing that, May is still looking for Xiao Mei. Yoki, as the sensitive guy that he is, suggests that maybe Xiao Mei was eaten, which Mei is very upset about, and she tells him that Xiao Mei is actually a panda, which I guess we've already said that. So
yeah.
whoops, if you haven't seen the anime, uh, what a huge
Well,
spoiler.
I
But
think Ed had
I
said it was
think
a panda bear, and everyone else who's not as well read as he and Al are said it was like a weird black and white cat.
yeah, yeah. Apparently, Xiao Mei had a disease that like stunted her growth, and so that's why she's so small. And Mei took her in when the other pandas abandoned her. And it's so cute. She says they're like sisters, and then you see a bunch of scenes of them like growing up together. It's very sweet. And so we can see that she's very attached. And this is Mei shares a little bit more about of her backstory, that she is from one of the lower ranked clans in Xing, and so she wants to find immortality like Ling does to save her clan. I think that in the anime, this is the first time that no, at least no, sorry, in the manga, it was the first time that Scar and Yoki found out why she was there. I
Mm.
can't remember if it happened in the anime earlier when they met.
She might have said something like briefly, but I don't think she went into detail.
Yeah. And then and it's super well, Yoki again is like, that's a pointless goal. You're not gonna be able to do that. He's just a ray of sunshine.
Oh yeah.
Um but Scar wants to help her find Xiao Mei, and I don't know, it's so sweet. Uh
And, and Yoki is kind of useful for a little bit in this episode because he explains to May that Scar may relate to her because he lost all his people and she's in a tough situation and she lost her, she lost someone important to her, so he's gonna
mhm.
try to help her. Plus he
Yeah,
loves animals, so.
yeah. And then we go back to Ed and Ling. They are super tired because they've been walking and they have not been able to find an end or an exit, and they very much want to rest and eat. And it's sweet because you see Ed is carrying Al's hand. He's like made a little like sling for it. He's gonna bring it back to him. Um, and Ling is like ready to give up, and he kind of like she's like, "Go on without me." And at first, Ed is like, "You're so weak. You're gonna give up so easily." And like he does like that thing where it's like, "Okay," that like parents do, where they're like, "Okay,
I'm
I'm leaving.
leaving.
I'm
I'm really
serious."
going.
Um, and like that, that never works on kids, or it didn't work on me.
Well,
But
because you knew they weren't gonna leave you.
yeah, some kids do get upset. I've seen it work, but I don't remember it working on me. Um, and of course, Ed, we already know he cares too much. He carries Ling on his back. And Ling is like, I thought you said you were gonna leave me. And Ed's like, well, we both have people waiting for us, so we need to stick together and find a way out. And then Ed's strength also gives out, and they're like, we need sustenance. Ed's like,
Leather goods are edible.
yeah. And at first, Ling is like,
They're boiling his shoe
yeah.
and Ling's like, you don't have athlete's foot, do you?
And he's
And
like, I have a metal foot.
I love it. I think
Mm.
Ling was just razzing him, but Ed's reaction is comedy gold. Um, Also, manga note, another longer scene, but he's gonna boil a shoe, fresh cooked shoe for dinner. And he said
Yummy.
he got the idea from a movie that they like boiled down leather
Hmm.
goods to eat.
Which I
Um,
didn't know movies were a thing in this world because we
we
have
covered that before
women.
because Ed and Elle said something about a movie in their childhood during one of their flashbacks in the manga too. So yeah, he's seen more than one movie apparently. But anyway, so that's where he got the idea. And he's able to transmute cooking utensils from random objects in like around them, and he's also able to get water from the blood that's on the ground. I thought that was very resourceful of him. Kind of gross, but he's changing it into something new. So
Hmm. Yeah,
yeah. Um,
he's boiling it, so
yeah, and
hopefully,
it'll be
any,
okay.
yeah.
And then there's also a brief scene where like he and Ling are kind of laughing about it, and Ling's like, "Oh, you just saved the future of Xing," and it's like, "Yeah, you're gonna have to put that in your stories." And I
In
can't
your
remember what
history,
specific.
yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
They're also they get a little bit more serious because Ed's like, we're gonna find a way out. We're gonna get out of this, and Ling is like, wow, you're pretty determined. Ed is very determined to get out because he are on a mission. He can't give up on his brother. And I think he says something along the lines of like, Al's gonna beat me up basically if I don't get out.
Yeah.
If I give up, I mean. And as they're talking, Ling senses someone, and out of the darkness comes Envy, because as we know, he was also swallowed. And it's really funny because Ed like begins immediately is like starts begging him for help, and he's like, I'll do anything, get us out of here. But Envy says that there's no exit, and he also confirms that they were actually swallowed by Gluttony. Another interesting thing that he says is that he asks Ed if he remembers this place. And Ed's like, well, it did look familiar, like, and it felt familiar, and he remembers like the eye, and he suddenly realizes that it's like the portal of truth, that he went into when he and Ed tried to bring their mother back.
When
And
he and Al tried to lead them wrong back.
what did I say?
He and Ed.
Yeah.
When Ed and Eddie tried to lead them wrong.
Did you ever watch that show?
No, it looks so weird.
It is. It was super weird, but for some reason, actually, when we were at my grandparents, they had cable, so we'd sometimes watch it, and it's yeah. Anyway, and Envy says like this, yeah, this is not a real portal of truth, but their father tried to create a portal of truth, and Gluttony is that failed experiment. And one interesting thing that he says is that this portal exists between reality and truth.
Yeah.
Um,
I looked it up in the manga. I said the same thing.
yeah, it did. So that was interesting. I don't know exactly what that means.
Reality is truth, isn't it? Maybe. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, exactly. Like that was my first thought. I was like, isn't reality truth? But maybe it's not.
There's a deeper
Um,
truth to reality.
hmm But what is this in between place?
Purgatory.
hmm I wouldn't really call like the
No.
portal of truth heaven
No.
or hell.
It's
So
like this void.
yeah, it's kind of a void. What I was just thinking of is like things are like either right or wrong, but then there's actually like this gray area,
Oh, so
and
this is
so
the gray area.
yeah, that's kind of what I'm picturing it as,
Hmm.
I guess.
Interesting.
Anyway, and then Ed Ed gets upset when he realizes that there's no way out, and they basically have to sit there and wait to die. And he's like, who's in charge of this? Is it the Fuhrer? And Envy kind of laughs, and he's like, the Fuhrer is nothing more than a homunculus.
He's not
Um,
father.
yeah, he's not father. Then Envy hits us with another shocking revelation. He was the one who started the Ishvalan War by killing a child. He disguised himself as a soldier who coincidentally was against the war. No, well, okay, not coincidentally, but on purpose did that.
Maliciously chose
Yeah,
that.
maliciously. And he killed a child, and that's what started the war. And I don't know, it's kind of I both did and didn't like what he said, because at first he's like, you have no idea how good it felt that he could ravage an entire country with a single bullet, which is, I don't know, interesting.
Terrible, but it's true. It's
Yeah, it is.
like,
We were talking about this last night. It's kind of things like that have happened in history as well. Like World War One started by an assassination attempt. And also it's kind of funny. This is like set in like what is it? 19
well,
Yeah,
13,
1912,
something
which
like
is
that.
like actually like
Oh,
around the same time as when World War One started. So, kind of interesting. Ed gets very angry because he realizes that like basically everything is Envy's fault, like the Ishvalan War, Scar being turned into a killer, Winry's parents dying, and Ed punches Envy right in the face, and nothing, nothing happens. Like he doesn't even move.
yeah.
And
Also, when he jumps down, he and Ling are on this like raised platform. He jumps down to go to Envy, and it's like the briefest of moments, but his shirt kind of flips up, and you can see the gun still tucked underneath his belt. And in the
mhm.
anime, he hasn't used it yet. Um, and it's more apparent in the manga though. Like it's more of a focal point that the gun is visible in the panel.
Yeah, I definitely noticed. Like I didn't actually even notice it when we were watching the anime, but it was yeah, very obvious in the manga, which I was curious to know why. I don't know why the author chose to do that, like focus on that. And Ling is warning Ed not to attack Envy, and because he's remembering Envy's like super heavy footprints, so he's like, this guy's bigger than he seems, and Envy's like, so you guys want to fight? And he transforms. It's so cool into this like, I don't.
Dragon looking thing.
Yeah. Honestly, okay, it's whenever I see it, to me it more looks like a giant green dog, but
Dog-like,
it,
lizard-like. The tail is
yeah,
definitely
yeah,
like a
yes.
leviathan sort of
hmm
thing.
Yeah,
It's
it's
got
super awesome.
multiple legs, multiple heads coming out of his like they're like human heads sticking out of him. And then if you look at
Yeah,
his eyes, like one eye is kind of normal, and the other eye has like multiple irises and pupils dancing around in it.
yeah.
And he
It
still has his
is.
hair.
Yep, he does, and it's very cool, but also kind of scary looking.
Oh, I
And
was terrified the
Ed
first time I
and
saw it.
yeah, Ed and Ling are like, oh shoot, we're in trouble. So after Envy transforms, we go back to, well, actually we haven't seen them yet, but Al is waiting with Xiao Mei and also Gluttony. Gluttony is watching Xiao Mei and Al, and he's like, what should I do? He's lost without his.
Yeah, that's a good point because like Al's just sitting there kind of in a like reflective state, and there's
Mhm.
a homunculus next to him who just like a day before was destroying everything in his path, and now it's just like he doesn't care, neither of them cares, and that's when you realize Gluttony's pretty harmless unless he's got orders from
Mhm.
someone.
And while he's standing there, Gluttony says, Father's gonna be mad at me. And that catches Al's attention. Um, Al, well, first he like pokes Gluttony's stomach, and it's kind of funny. It even happened in the manga. He like pokes him, and then like Gluttony like blushes. I don't like Gluttony, but that was kind of sweet.
Yeah.
And he's like, and Al's like, where did they go? And he asked Gluttony to take him to father. And Gluttony agrees because Al's one of the sacrifices. So he's like, of course, father is gonna be so happy to meet you. And they head off.
Perfect
Um,
transition too.
yes, the heads of the military are discussing potential sacrifices. So now we totally know that they are in on the whole scheme. Um, and they mention Dr. Marco, and I don't know if they say this in the anime, but in the manga they say that he's almost ready.
Hmm.
And then they ask if Kimberly could be a sacrifice, but they're like, he doesn't have the guts to do it, which, as we know, Kimberly is that guy, that creepy guy that we have seen in the prison. Um,
Hmm.
and the the Elrics are for sure sacrifices. And then they're like, what about Mustang? And they're like, the Fuhrer is dealing with him. And we see Mustang is talking with the Fuhrer, and Mustang's like, why don't you kill me? And the Fuhrer is like, then you won't learn your lesson if you're dead. Which really,
Okay, Dad.
yeah, he's keeping alive because he might be a potential sacrifice. But Mustang is like, if you're a homunculi, then if you're bad, then is this whole nation like corrupt? And the Führer is like, the homunculi have been controlling the nation since its inception, which is not good. I'm not saying like, don't you care about us? Like, don't you care about us at all? And he mentions that the Führer's hands were shaking at Hugh's funeral, and the Führer first is like, when you put on the uniform, he's so like callous. He's like, when you put on the uniform, you're putting on your funeral clothes. Like you're
Yeah.
accepting that like
He he says, why do people make such a big fuss over the death of one soldier?
yeah,
And
he also says
yeah.
that too. He's pretty, yeah, not not a good dude. And then he says that his hands were shaking because he was so angry that Alicia was making a scene at the funeral, which is like, eh,
Ouch.
yeah. And it's interesting too that he is, I don't know, he basically like is blaming Hughes for him dying, like Hughes dying. And he's very unfeeling. But in reality, like Hughes' death was like totally the homunculi's fault.
Oh yeah.
They're the ones that killed him. Like
not any
Mm.
action he took apart from trying to do his job and protect people.
Hmm. Yeah.
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 And then you brought up something really interesting when we were discussing this episode before, that the Fuhrer has he's like you said, he's so callous and he's only able to really keep his gaze on one thing or like his focus, I should say, on one thing. And you said the phrase that anger blinds you to reality and you can only feel like one thing at a time, and that's what wrath is, and
Hmm.
that's who he is. And then we both realized that he's he's the Führer and he's a homunculus and he's got the all-seeing eye and his eye patch over it. It's like his all-seeing eye may be a powerful weapon, but he's still blind.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
it's interesting the tattoo is on his eye, and wrath blinds you to what's happening around you.
Hmm. Yeah, it's super interesting. Yeah, I think we'll see that more and it'll be more obvious throughout the rest of the show. I'm gonna be keeping an eye out for like
Where the tattoos are.
sorry. No pun intended. uh,
Ah.
anyway,
Oof.
gonna be no, I can't. I was gonna say watching out for. That's like the same thing.
That's
Um,
bad.
I think I don't know, that might be a theme that the author has been decided to put in this manga. So anyway, so Mustang, he tries to threaten the Fuhrer by like, I wonder what your son would think if he knew that you were a homunculi. And the Fuhrer is immediately like, you can't use my son against me. Like, but he's like, you can't use my son against me, but I know what your weaknesses are. And then we see Hawkeye waiting outside for Mustang, and Fury runs up and he tells her that he's being transferred to the south and Breda to the west and Pullman to the north. They're being separated, and in that moment, some other military officials come out and hand Hawkeye a letter, and we find out that she's going to be the personal assistant to Fuhrer Bradley.
Oh
And
no.
yeah, not good. And we go back to Mustang and Fuhrer in the Fuhrer's office, and his face, it looks destroyed. Like he is a beaten man.
Bradley took away all of his friends and the woman he cares about the most. We're
Yep.
not beating around the bush. It's very obvious that Hawkeye is more than just a friend or subordinate to him.
Oh yeah. He loves her.
You know you love me. You wanna kiss me. Watch Miss Congeniality if you don't get the reference.
Then we go back to Ed and Ling and Envy, and they are getting beat up very badly by Envy, because he is a giant monster and they are two humans.
Two 15-year-old boys.
Yes, yes. And Ed makes Ling, they decide to take on Envy, of course, because they are two teenage boys. Um they Ed makes Ling it's kind of funny, it's a tacky sword with the skull like on the handle. And Ling is like, "Oh, you got a bad sense of taste."
Yeah,
And
actually in the
and
manga he just thinks it, he doesn't say it. But I'm so glad he said it in the anime.
yeah, it was good because Ed's I don't remember exactly what Ed said, but he's like, "No, I don't." Like it's awesome,
No,
basically.
he says, I don't know, I think it looks kind of sharp. And then he makes his
Yeah.
arm blade. Oh,
Yeah.
Ed.
He okay, Ed is stylish. He's got a
I
whole look
like
going
his
on.
vibe. I like his
Yeah.
vibe.
Yeah, me too. Um, you like his vibe so much that you cosplayed as him. So
Less of a cosplay and more of a inspired outfit.
oh well, you had like everything except for the
The
jacket.
jacket. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
And the hair antenna. There's no way I could pull that off.
yeah, that would be hard. And so they're gonna take on Envy, but Envy has already broken two of Ling's ribs, and Ed is also in pretty bad shape. So, we don't know how this is going to go, but that's where the scene ends. And the last scene of the episode, Al and Gluttony are heading to Central because that's where Father is.
Dun dun dun.
And that's the end of the
Yeah,
episode.
that episode went fast when we were watching it.
Yeah. So much happens.
Yeah. All right, I'm really excited to get to voice acting notes because I've been waiting for this person in particular. So, Envy, a boy, well, sort of, is played by Wendy Powell, a woman. And she is Kyo's mother from Fruits Basket, Maggie from Black Clover, and Emma from Vinland Saga. I just think it was such a cool decision to cast a girl who has more of like a gravelly voice as
hmm
Envy. I feel like that adds a lot to the character, given that he's a shapeshifter. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of an androgynous voice.
I was looking it up recently. Actually, I was like, "Hey, is Envy like what is Envy supposed to be?"
They always say
And
he in
it
the manga and in the anime.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. They always all the characters um reference him, call him he and him in the anime and the manga, and in the original he's for sure a guy. Um because
Yes, because of
um
you know what? Spoilers, spoiler alert for
yeah,
the original
yeah,
anime.
we won't no, let's not spoil it, but he's for sure a guy in the
Yeah,
original.
it
Uh
was really cool in the original, I'll be honest.
yeah,
I
I
liked
actually
that.
did like it. But he is actually is more of a he's genderless because he can transform into both male and female
And this is just the form he chooses to
characters.
present himself in is that younger kind of, I'd say male is his body type in
Yeah.
his form he's usually in. I mean, like he's got the longer hair and he's got like a slimmer body, but like when we first watched the show and we met him, I was like, is that a guy or a girl? But then just seeing how he moved and his profile's like, oh, that's a more of a boy's build. The hair is awesome, but yeah, I would say when the characters say he referring to Envy, it's because they know him in that form.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. And we had some things that we wanted to talk about. You can bring up the one.
So when they're traveling in Gluttony's stomach, Ling loses his strength faster than Ed, and both of them are pretty strong boys. So it's kind of like, why would he give out first and so soon? And we had a theory that it might be connected to like why he's always hungry, why he's like passed out on the side of the road all the time due to lack
hmm
of food, and he might have a condition like maybe he's I don't know, anemia might not be right
Yeah, I
for
would.
what
Yeah.
his symptoms are, but or low blood sugar or he has like a really high metabolism and just burns through things so fast, or maybe well, we posed the theory of diabetes, but he would have to have like what type 1 and he'd have way worse repercussions than just passing out if that were the
Yeah,
case.
yeah. Yeah, that's what we were discussing. I said probably not anemia because that doesn't really have to have anything to do with hunger
Well,
necessarily.
I know somebody
That's
who
more
is
like low.
anemic
It
and
depends on what type of anemia.
right.
But if you're
I know
thinking,
someone who is anemic and she food can help with that, like getting more
mhm.
iron in your diet.
Yeah, if it's like a low iron situation, then yes. But I would say it's probably more of just like low blood sugar issues and
Hmm.
not I wouldn't necessarily say I wouldn't say diabetes because there are a lot of I mean it could be, but like there's a lot of other symptoms that he would likely have that he doesn't. And so I think it's just like low blood sugar.
Yeah.
Um and that's why he has to eat so much. Yeah, he just gets tired easily. And I think it's interesting that like the author never like I don't think that she ever says you
Yeah.
know never says, but it's just like it is a weakness of his is that he gets tired and hungry. quicker than other characters. Also, actually, one thing there is that theory, but maybe another thing could be that, Ed, he literally had a rough childhood. He lived on that island for 30, what, it was like a month, and
Yeah.
like um had to learn how to keep moving forward and push through the pain and stuff, where Ling is a prince. He hasn't had to do that.
He
So
also has to
maybe,
fend off assassins on a daily basis, though.
yes, but like that doesn't
Well, his
mean,
basic needs are provided for, is what you're
yeah, I was
saying.
going to say, like, his basic needs are provided for, and like he's able, like, I don't know, that doesn't necessarily, like, you can be a strong fighter, but that
Mind
doesn't
over
mean
matter is
yeah,
stronger with
exactly.
Ed. Okay, yeah, I can see that too.
Hmm. Oh, and another thing that we wanted to talk about was gluttony was created by Father trying to make a portal of truth. And so we both were curious to know, what is the connection between like gluttony, like the I guess one, gluttony is like one of the seven deadly sins, which obviously, like, all the homunculi that we have met, like, it's kind of a theme that they are. And so, like, what is the connection between like the portal of truth and like
Yeah, because each
gluttony?
of these homunculi
Um,
have their like special ability that they can
uh-huh.
do. Like lust was the ultimate spear, and that can be connected with the sin of lust because you can spear people's hearts.
Hmm.
So with gluttony, my theory for that was that gluttony has to do with consumption, and
Hmm.
consuming can mean more than just eating food. Um, and like with his portal, he's like consuming everything in his path, but also it's like this all-encompassing sort of gate. And I saw your eyes light up. You got an idea?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, the his father, like, could be it was trying to consume knowledge. Like, he wanted all the knowledge, which is like
Yes.
the portal of truth has knowledge.
There we go. That's no confirmation is available in the show, but that's as good a theory as any.
Hmm.
Oh, and we had an Ed short rant. Yep. Got that on the tracker. When Ling checks to make sure it's really Ed and calls him a runt, Ed bites back, "Who you calling a little runt, you jerk?" Moving on to animation expertise. So I had to cover Envy's true form. That was massive. And it's really well drawn in the manga. But since it's so big compared to the characters and it would take so much time to draw, and there's so many moving parts, they made it a CG model. And it's actually integrated pretty well with the 2D for like the time this was made. Um, you can still totally tell it's 3D in a 2D world though, but I understand why they did it, and I think like just the way the model moves, it's a good choice for how the characters are supposed to be like fighting him and how he's touching the things in the world.
Yeah, I love, like, it's his true form is creepy, but it's very cool.
Yeah.
And I definitely, the first time you watch it, it did surprise me.
I
I
didn't know
remember
what,
being shocked.
because I thought it was going to be more humanoid, because they mentioned his true form back when they caught Greed, and he was like, he called him ugly. He's like, why don't you show me your real form? So I knew there was some bad blood there and maybe some
Mhm.
insecurity. And I was like, oh, what does he look like? What does he really look like? And again, going back to the 2003 anime, what he really looks like, there is a true form in there too, and it's way different. But it's
Yeah,
boy,
way
oh boy, you
different.
just gotta like, if there's one reason to watch the original, that's it, to see what happens with Envy. That was
Yeah, just
fascinating.
yeah, that is one. Well, we'll talk about this later, but
Yeah, we'll make some bonus
yeah,
episode or something.
yeah.
Who knows? We'll extend the podcast. I don't know. We can cover the whole thing. I don't
I
know.
don't want to talk about the original.
I don't want to go back to Nina. Um,
Ugh, ugh, no.
anyway. But yeah, that brings me to the story element analysis, which is the revealing of a true form. I've noticed that's kind of a trend in anime, other pop culture too. It's always super fun
Hmm.
to hide something from the audience. and the reveal is usually worth it. Another show I can think of that has one off the top of my head is Fruits Basket. Kyo has a true form.
Yeah.
That was epic.
That was okay. I actually just today I watched that scene again, and it's so cool when he
I love how his
transforms.
eyes change.
Yeah, yeah, and his like the way his body it
They did it really well.
it starts to transform like while he still looks human. And it's
Yeah.
so cool. I love it. That whole
I
scene.
also like how he kept his pants. Thank you, animators. Thank you, animators.
Wait, have you read the manga? Do you know if that
I
actually
did.
happens?
He keeps his pants.
Yes, pants. I was gonna say pants acquired, but they never
Innocence.
lost.
Innocence maintained.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Uh,
anyway, that's a little bit of a tangent.
and slightly spoiler, but
We didn't say anything that,
yeah.
yeah.
Anyway. Oh, that was that was the end of the episode. Megan, what was your favorite line?
Mine came from Ed. So Ling had just said to him, "You sure are optimistic," while they're going through Gluttony. And Ed just says, "Not really. I'm just stubborn." I really like that line. I think
Hmm.
that can be such a mood. I've felt that before. And what
Yep.
was your favorite line?
My favorite line was when Ed was Ed was trying to contact Al, and he says, conveniently awakened telepathic powers, Elric brother telepathy. Come in, brother, come in."
Look how he's just like
So,
waving the arm in the air.
yeah. It's so great. What was the moral of the episode? Or what was the theme?
Well, the surface level was don't give up. But if you dig deeper, it's you don't have to be an optimist, you just have to be stubborn.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
And who pushed the story forward?
Um, Envy did, because he revealed what he did in Ishval, and he also revealed his true form. So,
Yep,
yeah. Yeah.
we love those
Uh,
big reveals.
yes, and I guess, okay, we originally were gonna say Fear Bradley, and then we decided against it, but actually, I would say he gets a mention because he said that Amestris has been run by the homunculi since the beginning, which
Yes.
I think that's an important piece of information to know.
Yeah, I
Um,
think yeah, and just the whole confrontation with
mhm,
Mustang, that's
mhm,
the secondary story in this episode besides, Ed and Ling being trapped. So I think that deserves some props too.
yeah, yeah. All right. That was the end of this episode. It's a good one. I am so excited for the next episode.
I've been waiting for that one since we started the podcast.
Yes. All right. We
Awesome.
will be back next week with episode 26.
All right. See you then.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.